This week in the Pentagon, President Bush signs legislation to pay for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
A few moments ago, I signed legislation that funds our troops who are in harm's way.
Plus, capital charges are filed against a Guantanamo Bay detainee accused of masterminding the attack which killed 17 sailors aboard USS Cole in 2000.
5 of the 8 charges carry the maximum penalty of death.
And defying the odds, disabled war veterans turned Paralympic athletes.
You know, when we out there, we feel just as normal as anybody else. You know, we don't feel any pain. The adrenaline goes, and I mean, I just feel whole. You know, when I'm out there on the track.
Welcome to This Week in the Pentagon. I'm Sergeant Brian Buckwalter. The Coast Guard is taking steps towards modernization, debuting a new ship this week and announcing a new career field. This comes as the United States Maritime Services work towards combining efforts on the seas.
We're talking to them on the radio.
The maritime strategy, simply put, is the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard working together to promote peace and, when necessary, prevail in combat. These days, for the Coast Guard, the mission has also been modernization of the fleet as they debut the first ever national security cutter to hit the water.
This is a convergence of ideas. This is a convergence of leadership.
We're doing things that we've never done before in the U.S. Coast Guard.
And when it comes to modernizing the force, the Coast Guard is ever changing, striving to meet increasing security demands on the water in the 21st century. We'll have a closer look at the Coast Guard cutter Birdoff and their new job field later in the show. But first, this week at the White House, President Bush signed a war funding bill which included, among several things, increasing college benefits for service members.
The announcement was made June 30th from the Oval Office. The president had just signed a $162 billion supplemental war funding bill to fund military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And with this legislation, we send a clear message to all that are serving on the front line that our nation continues to support them. It provides necessary funds to support our troops as they conduct military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan and in other theaters in the war on terror.
The legislation also includes expansion of the GI Bill.
This legislation will make it easier for our troops to transfer unused education benefits to their spouses and children. It will help us to recruit and reward the best military on the face of the earth.
The changes to veterans' educational benefits under the new legislation is slated to go into effect August 2009. The post-9/11 Veterans Educational Assistance Act of 2008 will give service members about $80,000 for college. There is no buy-in required, like the $1,200 needed to enroll in the current Montgomery GI Bill. And Guard and Reserve members who've deployed for 36 months or more will get full benefits just like active duty members.
The Pentagon announced criminal charges in the 2000 USS Cole bombing that killed 17 sailors, and the latest combat units called for deployment to Iraq for 2009. That and other news this week in the Pentagon. A Saudi national was charged this week with capital offenses in the October 2000 attack on the USS Cole that killed 17 U.S. sailors and injured 47 others. Air Force Brigadier General Thomas Hartman announced Monday, June 30th, that Abdallah al-Rashim al-Nashiri, a Guantanamo Bay detainee, is charged with organizing and directing the attacks.
Mr. al-Nashiri is a member of al-Qaeda and has met with Osama bin Laden on several occasions.
Al-Nashiri is charged with several other offenses, some of which include
terrorism, destruction of property in violation of the law of war, intentionally causing serious bodily injury, providing material support to terrorism.
The chief prosecutor in this case has recommended it be tried as a death penalty case. Also on June 30th, DoD announced its latest round of force adjustments. 4 Army brigades and 2 Marine regimental combat teams will deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom early next year. Joint Chiefs Chairman Admiral Michael Mullen briefed reporters July 2nd. The chairman responded to speculation that Israel might launch a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and broad concern about instability in the Middle East.
Opening up a third front right now would be extremely stressful on us. That doesn't mean we don't have capacity or reserve, but that would really be very challenging.
And in other news, as a record number of wildfires continue to burn in California, about 200 National Guard troops will help thousands of emergency personnel battle more than 1,400 blazes across the state. It's the first time in more than 30 years the Guard troops join fire crews on the ground. Officials say the Guard is also poised to mobilize bulldozers, truck transportation support, and command and control personnel. Tuesday, July 1st, marked the 35th anniversary of America's all-volunteer armed forces. And to honor the occasion and the men and women who put their lives on the line for the ideals and freedoms Americans enjoy every day, more than 24 soldiers re-enlisted in the courtyard of the Pentagon.
At the Pentagon, the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army hosted a swearing-in ceremony for 24 re-enlisting soldiers and some young Americans just joining the Army.
We owe a tremendous debt of thanks to these young men and women. These men and women who not only are re-enlisting in time of war, but these enlistees for the first time, they're young people, many of them right out of high school. They see our nation has called them, and they're standing up and saying, yes, send me. It's inspiring.
The Constitution of the United States. I've watched the evolution of this force over the last 30-plus years into what is unquestionably the most competent professional fighting force, maybe in the history of the world, certainly today. And I think that's a great anniversary to celebrate.
Many of the new recruits have visions for the future and see the Army as a stepping stone.
Mainly because the benefits, and just I want to get into a law enforcement, become FBI when I get older, and I figured starting military as MP would be a good start.
I want to build experience to get to my future career. I want to work for the SWAT team one day.
Those re-enlisting know firsthand what the Army offers, and they like it.
The constant challenge, I like doing that. I'm in a great unit with a great bunch of people, so I really enjoy the camaraderie. And I like the opportunity to serve my country. I come from a military family, and it's a tradition with us.
No matter who I spoke with today, whether it's a new recruit or a soldier re-enlisting, each one of them had something in common, and that was opportunity. Everyone said that the Army offered them opportunity for a brighter future. From the Pentagon, I'm Air Force Master Sergeant Erin Roberts.
Those re-enlisting join up again with fellow warfighters volunteering to serve their country. For 35 years, Americans have answered the call to join the armed forces. Those leading today's warfighters say the all-volunteer force has come a long way from Cold War conflicts to the global war on terror. Master Sergeant George Maurer reports on the anniversary of America's all-volunteer military.
Today's warfighters, made up of active duty, National Guard, and reservists, are the latest generation of an all-volunteer force. A force that builds on 35 years of effort.
We need their service. They represent a very small part of the American population. A lot of people are counting on them. The 99 percentile are counting on about 1% to do the heavy lifting, and I'm proud of them for doing the heavy lifting, and I think the nation recognizes that and is also proud of them.
Lieutenant General Thomas Metz knows a great deal about the effort to build that force, having seen firsthand the move to an all-volunteer Army with more than 40 years of duty as a leader and trainer of soldiers.
I think in the beginning we tried to recruit a force of be like, be all you can be. We're going to cater to your needs. And I think we learned from that no, we need to establish the standards, and those young volunteers will come up to those standards.
The goal was to transform a Vietnam-era force of mostly draftees into a premier combat-ready force of volunteers. Since July 1st, 1973, the all-volunteer force has faced off against Cold War-era threats from Europe to Grenada and then into a new century against the battle-tested army of Saddam Hussein and new threats, where volunteers join knowing they will probably go to war.
For several years now, all the enlistees have known they're going to war. There's a thread of patriotism in all of that. There's some great benefits that's a thread in all of that. There's some great training, some great experiences, but they do it knowing that there's a war in front of them.
And DoD officials say the volunteer force of today is smarter, more diverse, and more motivated than the draft force it replaced.
The retention over the course of this conflict has been as strong as any period in our history, and it speaks volumes, I think, about the dedication of volunteers and I think the dedication of today's force.
Through it all, serving alongside service members are their families, and tending to the needs of military families is a growing concern for DoD planners supporting today's all-volunteer force. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Air Force Master Sergeant George Maurer.
Coming up, the first national security cutter hits the water. Welcome back to This Week in the Pentagon. Not long ago, the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard unveiled a new maritime strategy. It's a partnership between the three sea services to remain a dominant force on the water. This week, we take a closer look at what the Coast Guard is doing to modernize both its fleet and its people. First, we take a look at their newest ship, their first national security cutter, the Berthoff.
It started as an idea, a new class of large Coast Guard cutters able to meet the service's demands of the post-9/11 world. Flash forward to May 2008. The Coast Guard accepts delivery of the very first national security cutter and names it the Berthoff, after Ellsworth Berthoff, the first Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard.
When the Berthoff is commissioned later this year, it will become the new flagship for the U.S. Coast Guard. Now, building the first new large cutter in over 35 years has come with some challenges, but the crew is confident that those challenges have been overcome.
We've always been satisfied that we had the right type of ship. We were putting the right capability on it. I think what got confused along the line with some of the coverage is a technical understanding of things like fatigue life of the hull and all those, and it really masks the fact that this is really a fine ship.
The 418-foot cutter boasts many upgrades over any other Coast Guard ship. More small boats, improved livability, state-of-the-art electronic systems, and a weapon system never before seen on a U.S. ship.
57mm Bofors is a Swedish built, was designed as an anti-aircraft gun, but it's a digital variation designed for, now we use it for surface contacts and things of that nature. We went through builder's trials, and this is the first time that this gun has been fired on a U.S. vessel. So it's kind of a crowning achievement for us, and it was nice to see the system work successfully.
The weapon system, along with the rest of the cutter, is the largest symbol of the Coast Guard's modernization efforts.
We are overdue for an overhaul of aging platforms using modern technology. So this platform is a big step forward for our capability to safeguard our borders, complementing what we're doing in technology and infrastructure and our land borders as well.
Aside from the operational benefits the cutter gives the Coast Guard, the design of the ship is something the crew can appreciate as well.
The biggest stateroom or berthing area, if you want to call it that way, is a 6-man. And that's the biggest one. I remember in the 378, you could be like 20 of you.
Well, we've always wanted to have smaller berthing areas because it allows us to really support our diversity goals. And we've always wanted to have unrestricted assignments for women in the Coast Guard, and this even helps us more.
Oh, it's definitely like having a room, sharing with people, I guess, on your own. Like I said, you only have 4 people to share with, so it makes things a lot easier, not having to fight over restroom spaces and showers.
A new technologically advanced cutter that will meet the needs of the crew, the Coast Guard, and the nation. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Coast Guard Petty Officer Adam Eggers.
Most people know that the Coast Guard does law enforcement. In fact, most Coasties have some enforcement training. But since September 11th, the demand has increased for very specialized units and skills. The Coast Guard responded to this demand by announcing a new career field.
The Commandant of the Coast Guard announced last week the establishment of a new job rating involving law enforcement and security duties. Until now, active duty Coast Guard members performing law enforcement missions have done so only as a collateral duty.
But we've done a lot of our training over the years in OJT, on-the-job training at stations and on cutters. We've now got a Maritime Law Enforcement Academy that does a really good job, but we don't put everybody through that. And there are some stations that are so involved, and some cutters are so much involved in law enforcement, you need somebody with that kind of dedicated expertise on board.
Get back! There's been a need for people within the Coast Guard who focus on it 100% of the time for their entire career. Now, fast forward to 9/11. After 9/11, we created a lot of special units. Those folks do a lot of enforcement actions. It's almost a higher level tactical operation. In order to sustain that kind of competency within that field, it almost made this thing a must-do.
For current Coast Guardsmen hoping to make the switch, like Petty Officer Nina Galvez, the announcement was a positive first step.
I was extremely excited. There is a lot of frustration as far as getting all the training and then being transferred to another unit where they don't do any of the law enforcement.
It will be approximately 18 to 24 months before the new rating is available. The next step is to identify exactly how many and where the billets will be located. Other considerations are unit needs and impact to other ratings.
We've had this conversation for almost 4 years now. What we finally decided to do was go ahead and move ahead with it, but take our time in implementing it to make sure we weren't having an effect on a rating that was unintended.
For questions about the new rating, contact the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard through uscg.mil. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Coast Guard Petty Officer Adam Eggers.
Still ahead, war veterans turned Paralympic athletes. Welcome back to our program. Service members were the guests of honor this week for the PGA Tour's AT&T National Golf Tournament held in our nation's capital. This year is the second year for the tournament, hosted by Tiger Woods. It kicked off with the Earl Woods Pro-Am Wednesday, July 2nd at Congressional Country Club. Earl, Tiger's father, was an Army Green Beret and served 2 tours in Vietnam. Senior Master Sergeant Kurt Kessler was selected to play in the Pro-Am alongside professional golfer John Rollins.
To get to play on a PGA golf course and of this magnitude is truly very exciting.
It was his golf skills that got him on the course. But golf is a mental game and has a way of humbling even the best players.
Oh, Kirk.
But it didn't seem to bother the airman. He just says he's truly honored.
Because bottom line, I'm representing the DoD, Marines, Air Force, Army, and Navy.
Military is very important to Tiger and very important really to our foundations.
Greg McLaughlin, president of the Tiger Woods Foundation, says the Pro-Am was just one little way to honor service members. The tournament's opening ceremony, however, was all about the military. 28 children of service members attended, as well as wounded warriors from Walter Reed Army Medical Center. Even the 101st Airborne's Screaming Eagles dropped in to deliver the ceremonial first shot golf balls.
I've delivered footballs, baseballs, but never a golf ball, so this is the first.
These balls arrived from places like Germany, the middle of the ocean, and Afghanistan, after service members got a chance to help hit the ceremonial first shot. Professional golfer Fred Couples joined 2 military children to send the golf balls on their final journey right down the fairway. For Couples, he says participating in this tournament and filling in for Tiger Woods, who is recovering from knee surgery, is a humbling experience.
We miss a short putt and we walk off and we're grumpy. And it's kind of like when you see people that go through things a lot harder than we do, you know, it's an eye-opener.
Here in the nation's capital over July 4th, I mean, what better way to again say thank you.
And as for Senior Master Sergeant Kessler, whose lucky break to play in Wednesday's Pro-Am wasn't working out so good, well, he started to take his own advice.
Keep your head down and swing easy. It's what I got to start doing.
And so, from off the green, a little chip, a good roll, and in the hole.
That's the idea. Take autographs now, please. Thank you.
At a barbecue dinner at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, some recovering service members learned a little bit about golf.
Get your arms coming this way, not out.
And some PGA players learned a little bit about war.
You know, it's kind of an eye-opening experience. I thought, oh, I'm going to come and meet a couple of the soldiers, but some of these guys got banged up pretty good, and they're not going to have the quality of life they had that they had before.
The PGA Wounded Warrior relationship goes back a few years, enough time for deployed service members to have linked up overseas.
We sent equipment over to the soldiers who built these little golf courses over there. One in Mosul, one in Kirkuk, one in Baghdad, and now I guess they're finishing one, a 4-hole facility up in Afghanistan. And so it's just all fun. It's just gives us the opportunity to give back a little and support these guys.
Dan Nevins is something of a golf evangelist. He spent nearly 2 years recovering from combat wounds at Walter Reed, and he says his therapist encouraged him to swing some iron.
The escape from the day-to-day things that you deal with as an injured soldier, to get out on some of the most beautiful land in the world and just worry about that one little golf ball and putting it in the hole. It's such a relief, clears your head, and you do it for 4 and 5 hours at a time. So there's nothing better in my opinion.
Pay up.
The PGA Tour meets Tour of Duty. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Air Force Master Sergeant George Maurer.
Cast members from the popular television show Army Wives hosted a screening of an upcoming episode this week at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. Wounded warriors, real Army wives, and their families were the guests of honor for a special reception and advanced premiere.
It just means a lot to be here. And what everybody does on our behalf, what all the soldiers and the Army families and all military families, what they do on our behalf is just so unbelievable.
Army Wives is a U.S. television drama series that follows the lives of 4 Army wives and their families. The show, based on the nonfiction book Under the Sabers, The Unwritten Code of Military Marriage, premiered on the Lifetime Network in June 2007. It was the highest-rated premiere for Lifetime.
Well, I certainly never thought of a TV show. I simply wanted to tell the story of military life, but from the perspective of the military spouse. It's not something that's really been done before.
And while not all military spouses are women, they do face the same challenges supporting an all-volunteer fighting force.
But the challenges I've faced are the challenges that military wives have faced for years, which is remaining employed, having a voice in the community, moving across the country and hoping that your children basically have a good transition, an easy transition as they move.
The Army's top wife offered her advice to other military wives about how to support their spouse and the all-volunteer force they're a part of.
Yes, hang tough. Times are tough right now. The repeated deployments are really taking its toll on families, and we're doing everything we can to try to help them through it. There will be light at the end of the tunnel.
Reporting for the Pentagon Channel, I'm Air Force Master Sergeant Erin Roberts.
With the start of the 2008 Summer Olympic Games set to begin next month in Beijing, China, athletes from around the world are fiercely competing for the rare opportunity to represent their country in sports. Part of that competition includes Paralympic athletes who, despite physical disability, stretch the human spirit and defy the odds. 2 Iraq War veterans are doing just that.
At the recent U.S. Paralympic trials at Arizona State University, athletes from around the country competed for a chance to make the team and represent the U.S. at the Paralympic Games in Beijing, China.
Shields, another of the 4 Iraq War veterans in this competition. He's in lane 9.
Some of our servicemen who made great sacrifices in Iraq took part in the trials. For them, the competition provides a way to have a normal life.
Through running and other sports, we're able to get out, be outside, and participate and compete in sports, not thinking about the injury. You know, when we out there, we feel just as normal as anybody else. You know, we don't feel any pain. The adrenaline goes, and I mean, I just feel whole. You know, when I'm out there on the track.
Courtney Clemens and Jared Fields both sustained their injuries in Iraq on the very same day, February 21st, 2005. A roadside bomb ripped through the Bradley fighting vehicle Jared was driving, seriously injuring his leg. Despite devastating injuries, he drove his crew to safety and earned the Bronze Star for his courage. An Army medic, Courtney was tending to injured comrades in Baghdad when he sustained wounds that would rob him of his leg.
An Iraq veteran and Iraq War veteran in lane number 7.
He became the first Iraq veteran to qualify for the U.S. Paralympic Games in 2006.
I think I'm just about enjoying life, man. I mean, really don't. Today, you know, was a milestone for me to get here and run. And sure enough, I didn't hit the standard that I wanted to hit. But man, just think about where I've come from. You know, I've come from laying there on the battlefield, hemorrhaging to death, to graduating from college, running on the track, about to represent my country. So I mean, the good outweighs the bad so much that I really can't complain, you know.
Through Paralympics, the paths of these two soldiers crossed, and they became good friends. It's no coincidence that now they're both about what's in front of them and leaving the past behind.
Opportunities. I mean, I think that's the main thing. When people with disabilities, I think, across the board want opportunities. And they don't want anything given to them, they just want an opportunity, you know what I mean? And as long as I have these opportunities and to move forward in life, I mean, this Paralympic lifestyle has gotten me places that I never would have been, you know what I mean? So just continue to move forward.
You know, just walking through after a race, there are little guys with, you know, arm and leg, and they're shaking your hand, and man, I'm going to be there in a few years. So it is great. And to go to hospitals and talk, and I love it. I love to help people. I love to inspire them and to get them out and to take time with them, and it's wonderful.
That's our show this week. We want to thank everyone involved for their contributions. Please be sure to tune in and join us again next week as we examine the top news stories surrounding the Department of Defense. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Sergeant Brian Buckwalter. Have a happy and safe 4th of July holiday, and thanks for watching. We leave you now with these images of an evening parade at Marine Barracks, Washington, D.C. The Secretary of Defense and Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff attended the June 27th event.